Hello, hello. Happy Tuesday. Surprise. It's awesome seeing you guys 2 days in a row. Yesterday, I kicked your butt and I'm feeling it a little bit today for those of you who joined me. I wanted to talk more about everything's so fitness and workout and kicking your butt. And there's a lot of you out there that are struggling with symptoms, deficiencies, medical issues. And even though many of you have the best of spirit and intention, your body just doesn't facilitate what you'd like to do for activities. So today I wanted to spend some time. I always talk about in my groups and back in my studio, my husband and I in the day talked a lot about spot treatments, using your vibration plate to just address whether it's chronic issues, things that crop up throughout the course of the day, things that are inhibiting you from getting to the bigger goals and other things you're trying to accomplish. So today, I actually spent a bit of time because there's so many spot treatments that I could talk about. But I wanted today, after the live, I'm going to post what I called the move, how long I did it for, where you put your feet, because many of you can use these. Anything I'm doing today is about a 1-2 minute max spot treatment to address certain things that come up in your life or to use in complement with your existing routine, whether it's the gym, whether it's using a vibration plate. So what I'd like to ask at the end of the questions I'll invite today are going to be more related to, maybe there are things that are holding you back from spreading your wings as far as reaching your goals. If there's anything that I haven't covered at the end of today that can't help you, I certainly have other variations, but I'm going to limit it to four different things today. And those four are, I'm going to show you a 2-minute thing for low back relief. I'm going to show you a couple of seated options. One of them is just a good circulation and lymph boost. Any of these moves I've done as part of other sessions, but I want to just pull out these pieces as spot treatments and reiterate some of these points. I'm going to do a morning metabolic. Well, pardon me, I've got 3 here today. I'm going to do a morning metabolic boost. Many of you are, I know, focused on fitness and perhaps gaining or losing weight. I'm going to encompass both of those aspects today. And I like to do what I call a morning metabolic boost. I call it that because I'm in my 5th decade. The metabolism is sagging a bit. And there's lots of ways for those of you that are working on weight loss or weight gain and have had success with it. You want to keep those, there's things you want to continue to do, not because you're at the goal already, but you want to maintain the work that you've put in. So we're going to start with a seated circulation and lymphatic boost. For those of you that have not joined me for a session, I'm going to be using a stool today. And the stool is simply to reduce the amount of body weight. Perhaps you are dealing with conditions and you're not quite certain, or there's a little bit of fear in using the plate. Maybe you're just having a bad day and your chronic issues are through the roof because of all the celebrating you did over the holidays. So there's lots of reasons to start seated. Many of my clients that I work with use the entire routine seated, and they build and progress from there. Some of my clients are using it as a combination. So this is just an option. This is all about just feeling good and addressing short things today. So I'm always working barefoot on the plate. I had that question the other day. Should I wear shoes? Should I not wear shoes? It really depends. Me personally, there are reasons to wear shoes medically. Perhaps you're just beginning to become active and you've got some issues with your feet and you're supposed to be wearing orthotics. Perhaps you're dealing with neuropathy and there's a little bit of fear. But ideally, long-term, I do want you progressing to no shoes. We weren't born with shoes. And I personally, through my own experience, find the feet, we don't really give them the attention they deserve until there's a problem. So by allowing your feet to interact in their natural form, having to rely on themselves, not some orthotics or supports in your running shoes, you will also find when you're wearing shoes, the feeling or the sensation of the movement itself is somewhat dampened because, of course, you've got soles on your shoes. And that goes for Crocs or sandals or anything like that. So stock or barefoot is something, certainly from a relaxation perspective, I think you'll grow to appreciate if you're not doing it now. But for those of you that are doing fitness, have you ever trained barefoot? Yeah, it brings the stability, the circulation. There's all kinds of different benefits to working out barefoot on your plate. And again, that being said, on the opposite spectrum with fitness, there may be certain positions where you do want to wear shoes or a certain type of routine. But as a whole, it's a choice. It's a personal choice. It's a personal preference. I always recommend trying both and seeing what works best for you. So the seated routine we're going to do right now, all of the exercises I always do are in oscillating movement. There's a few more adaptations that you can do in that style of movement for your own sensitivities or for challenging yourself. And there's just a couple of different things to understand. Oscillating, pivotal, there's a few different names, is also the most common movement, the most functional, and the most researched. So all of Life Pros offer this mode if you want to use pulsation or lateral. The positions are universal, but the intensity is a little bit different and more controllable in oscillating. So I'm going to stick with that. I want your feet about hip width apart. If you're super sensitive, if you're dealing with, lots of pain, sensitivity, you are always in control of how strong the vibration feels, regardless of what speed. So if you're very sensitive or tender or fearful, bring the feet closer to the center. And if you've never tried playing with your foot position, it's a very easy experiment. Leave one in the middle, put one out wide, and you'll feel that there's a difference in how much you're moving, just like a teeter-totter. So instinctively, if we've had a poor experience or if we didn't like how the machine feels, we start slow. Starting slow, this is not a treadmill or an elliptical. I said this in yesterday's session. I want you guys, for everything I'm doing today, and I'll outline this in my little cheat sheet when I repost in the posted version of this video, in a mid-speed or even higher if you can tolerate it. And I think you'll find if those mid speeds or those high speeds are somewhere you've never spent much time or you're afraid of it just doesn't feel good, there's a direct relationship to where your feet are. The slow speeds are about destabilization and improving balance. It's not about challenging you if you've got Parkinson's and you've got a fear of falling. It's never one setting. It's also the exercise you're doing. And I think you'll find for the feel good and the spot treatments today, a more moderate or conservative foot position combined with a mid to a higher speed range is not only going to be more beneficial, you're getting more blood flow, you're getting a smoother movement. It's just a matter of learning how to spend some time there and learning what your personal boundaries and tolerances are. So I'm at a mid-speed. I'm working on a Rumblex model. I'm at about 35. I recommend 30 to 40 if you're on a 60-speed model, 50 to 60. And I always speak ranges because it's very much a different sensation and feeling to each of you. So, try this range. Never keep anything the same long term because your body just gets used to it and you're just maintaining. So I'm a big creature of doing similar or the same type of positions, and I just like to tweak my speeds or my foot placements from time to time. So for this one, my feet are a little closer than hip width apart. You want to make sure the legs are nice and straight. For those of you that are dealing with circulatory, cardiac, any of these blood or lymphatic issues, calf strength and flexibility is a huge thing. Again, like our feet, we don't pay attention to until there's a problem. So I want you to just, do some seated calf raises. If you're dealing with poor mobility below the knees, you've got really weak ankles, you're at risk of rolling them. These are great exercises to do, but maybe not full body weight, like in a standing position. So get used to and practice the moves seated before you progress to more challenge, okay? For those of you that are really fearful, I have to have my props. This is a pool noodle. Very simple. There's most of you own these and have them in your home. I want to make sure I haven't lost anybody here. What I like to do with the reason I use a pool noodle, your traditional physio or rollers that you may use to do rolling work are too dense when you combine the vibration with them. A vibration plate is just an environment. It's just something that accelerates the benefit and reduces the time and impact of the exercises you're probably supposed to be doing now. But for those of you that are very severe, below baseline, very chronic, and you don't do calf raises, this is a little support aid. I'm just putting the pool noodle under my heel so I can get the ankle into the position I want. And from here, just slightly raise up your heel, not so high that you're losing the pool noodle, and then just relax. We just want to slowly start engaging those calf muscles, okay? So that's just a way to give you support if you're not doing those exercises, and even doing it seated is scary for you. A pool noodle is also this is totally off tangent, but a pool noodle is like my favorite way to just sit here and deal with my day, just rolling it back and forth. For those of you that are dealing with neuropathy, poor mobility, and you're not able to spend a lot of time standing on the plate, or you're not ready to, you're only limited by your imagination and your range of motion. So if you have other things around the house, little rubber balls, try incorporating them with your plate, and you might find a good little combination there. Things that you're using on the floor now. So the next add-on, this is part 2. So the first part of this exercise is just getting this spot treatment is just getting some lower leg, and almost you'll feel it up to the waist. If you're comfortable, a variation would be adding just some slow calf raises. The upper body portion we're going to add on is we're going to bring the elbows down to the knees. Now, when you connect the elbows to the knees, you begin a transfer up into the shoulders and the neck. And the way that you're situated with your elbows on the knees, most of the vibration is limited to the neck and shoulders and below. If you come further back, you'll feel it a little less invasive yet if you're just looking for some lymphatic and some circulation in the arms. But if you're able and have the range of motion to do this, it's very minimal on the head. That being said, if you're finding it's still too much action, perhaps where your feet are positioned seated is different than when you add the upper body, especially if you're dealing with deficiencies. So you can, same lesson, bring your feet closer, put the elbows back on, reduce the amount of movement for this portion of it. So from here, I just want you to relax, breathe. For my ladies out there, we get a lot of tension in the neck and the shoulders. What do? We roll our head around, our shoulders. All you're doing is taking the stimulus that this is creating and directing it here without physically having to get down on the ground. So this is a great option for those of you that spend a lot of time at a desk, and perhaps you've got a plate there that you do use. This is a great variation to just get a little bit of the daily routine, that repetitive stuff out of you. For those of you that are dealing with chronic and just can't physically get down on the ground to do upper body applications, this is a great option. So each of these exercises, we started seated. We moved over to this is the second variation. Again, I'll recap these written in the comments after the live. 30 seconds to a minute. How often? I don't know, whenever you need throughout the course of the day. We're not working out, and I don't want everyone thinking that you should be doing this for 12 to 14 hours a day. I'm talking 30 seconds to a minute, this exercise, both of them. How is that any different than you standing up from your desk and doing a stretch or doing some movement? I think that's recommended by most places. So it's just an easy way to get some movement and spend less time doing it to get the benefits. And these, like I say, if you've got tension in those areas, or that's something you want to focus on, you can add that onto your workout at the beginning as a warm-up or afterwards as a wind down. So the next one I want to show you was seated circulation and lymph, I called it. The next one I'm going to move to is a low back relief. For those of you that are dealing with low back tension, previous injury, I say low back because that's kind of the positions where you'll feel, but there's going to be a relief depending on how you position yourself. So everything's a little bit, there's a variation for everyone. This one, we are going to, if you do have a low back issue and it's very severe, you may want to do a little bit of time seated. So when you're dealing with back and spine issues, it is not like we're doing squats. I'm assuming that you're in pain or you lack mobility. Certainly range of motion is often compromised. So this is one of those times I want to be ultra conservative, not a speed thing. I want you starting with your feet, depending on your height and your comfort. I would like to see your feet no more than an inch, maybe two apart from the center before you stand on the plate. If you can take more action, good for you, but I don't necessarily want to start you, with too wide of a foot placement and jar you in any way. So be conservative. If while you're standing, things are feeling okay, then you can widen up your foot placement. But if you are dealing with a back issue, you've just tweaked it, you overlifted, be conservative. We're just trying to offer relief. We're not trying to work it out. So my feet are about 1.5 inches apart. My knees are slightly bent. I don't want us all looking all like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Shoulders back. Engage that core. Try and have a nice straight frame where your shoulders are in line with your heels. Now from here, depending on how you feel, if you're okay in this position and it's not hurting you, I would like you to slowly try. You may not even be able to move more than 1/2 inch, but I would like you to try doing some slight pelvic tilts. So bring the bum forward, clench those butt cheeks. You'll feel the vibration primarily move to the front of the pelvis and the thighs. Clench those cheeks. And this is the one, very carefully relax, tilt and arch, back the other way. Now you're going to feel this is almost just as much of a stretch. So you just work within your range of motion, no bouncing, but just a very slight forward and backward movement. And you'll feel this slight wave of the stimulation just sort of in this region. If it's more to one side or more than the other, perhaps doing some circles. Here, I'm going to turn sideways. Perhaps doing some slight circles. Once you feel comfortable doing the tilt, maybe you want to just go one side to the other. Just get some movement in this basic core area. We're doing this at the same setting, mid to high speed. Feet are more conservative, so there's not as much movement. Often you'll find if it's just tension related or things are tight, and you loosen up, maybe you can move your feet a little wider. Maybe your range improves, but keep it to 30 seconds to a minute for this single exercise. Again, this is just a spot treatment, not a workout. So now that we're a little bit loose, I want you tilting forward, keeping a nice straight spine. We're not locking up the legs, but we're close. They're just undone. And just by changing the angle and how I'm standing, the vibration is primarily now in this lower torso area. If you're finding it's too much action, you're hitting the spot that's painful, bring the feet closer. And you're always in control. If you're feeling unstable and you may want something to hang on to, I love my chair. Maybe you need the back of a chair or a counter, okay? If range of motion allows, just hold still, let the arms hang. If you're feeling comfortable and you're feeling stable, you can add that same previous motion that we were just doing. And it's kind of like a standing cat-cow. So you're going to tilt forward, arching up at the shoulders, hold for 2 to 3 seconds, tilting back, arching like a cat. But because we're primarily in this low back stance, we're keeping the movement and the relief into that area, the hips, the low back that we're trying to target. Okay? So again, first variation was just a slight pelvic tilt, 30 seconds to a minute. Be ultra conservative with the feet, especially if you're tender or you're dealing with a chronic issue. Second position was simply leaning forward. Allow the arms to hang, nice straight spine. If you do feel comfortable, you can try incorporating the two. Okay? This is a great one once you get comfortable with it. 2 to 3 minutes whenever. And if balance feels great, I always kind of feel like I have to touch my toes when I'm done. So I always go down. Once you get about here, it's totally fine to lock your legs. You'll get a better stretch. And then slowly come up like you're letting each vertebrae pop. See, I went off on tangent again. Not Debbie, ever. She never rambles. Okay, so that was set number 2, low back, lumbar. much of this may be repetitive, but sometimes if you're not doing these exercises regularly, you go, oh, I totally forgot about that one. It worked so good. So, or maybe you're just bored with what you're doing and you need to mix things up. Maybe you're progressing and you want some new challenge. But like I say, a lot of these can be a simple add-on at the beginning or after your routine, or just as you need, as these symptoms, these issues that we're dealing with that deter us from doing other things crop up throughout the day. So the last one I want to show you, because it is the new year and many of you have other goals, as I said, I'm going to show you my morning metabolic boost. I am so about squashing the stigmas, and there's this mentality out there that you have to run like a hamster on a wheel or physically be incapable of walking by the time you're done your workout to lose weight. And that's just, that's not only not true, but it's simply impossible for the vast majority of individuals out there, especially if you're dealing with chronic issues. It's pretty hard to run 5 to 10K a day if you have joint inflammation and you're going to be suffering for a week afterwards. So one of the biggest reasons that vibration plates are, of course, marketed is you can lose weight and tone. But unfortunately, over the years, and the industry has been around a lot longer than many people realize, there's all these false marketing messages. You can't just stand there and expect to lose 150 pounds on a vibration plate. And I know there are people out there that will say, no, Debbie, I lost 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40. I've seen people lose 50, 60 pounds with passive use, but it's being consistent with what you're doing. It's also looking at calories in, calories out. I don't like using that word. I would prefer to say responsible fuel for the activities you're trying to perform. And the machine's not going to do all the work. So my morning metabolic boost, because I have a bad knee, I can't sustain long, high impact things. So I like to make things very short, very intense for my own range of motion and my own conditioning. And I, 2 to 3 minutes of some really mean leg work first thing in the morning, whenever your morning is, whether you're a night worker or a day worker, but by boosting that metabolic function in the morning, by pushing those muscles to a point of fatigue quickly, it not only it's just as much a therapy on my knee and my joints, because I'm not really pushing it, but the muscles themselves get to a point of fatigue. It boosts that metabolism, and superficially throughout the course of the day, that idle bank of calories, they're taking a few more out. There's a few more withdrawals from that calorie bank by getting that metabolism fired up first thing in the morning. It also is a secondary thing for me. It's an energy boost. It's a mental clarity thing. All the same benefits that you would get with exercising in the morning. But for many of you, it's a time or a chronic issue reason for not being able to do those traditional routines. So this is 2 moves. It's a very simple variation on a theme. Hang on, I need to find my little outline here. We're going to start with one of the exercises, the pelvic tilt. Typically, I like to do as a warm-up, but I'm going to show you how to get yourself to fatigue very quickly with a squat. And a lot of times it's about identifying what's going to work for you. So your range of motion, your current level of conditioning, all these factors come into it. So again, with something like a squat, foot placement is very much part of where you are conditioning wise right now. So what I would suggest, we've done several exercises, but if you didn't watch the first set, I want you warming up with a little pelvic tilt or a few minutes standing before you get into the squat. So 30 seconds to a minute actually would be sufficient. For my squats, I'm a little bit further apart than my hips because I'm going quite deep in my squats. What you'll find once you get down to even a light squat range, the vibration that you feel in the upper body almost dissipates completely, and you're not really feeling it anywhere other than the waist and below, because you're suppressing in those large groups of muscles, the quads, the hamstrings, the glutes. Keep those heels planted. A good squat is also about flexibility and range of motion in the lower body, the ankles in particular. Very commonly will come up onto the toes to get lower. You want to make sure your feet are firmly planted. That heel is kind of, balancing about 70 to 80% of the weight. And I want you just going as low as you physically can while keeping a good frame. Again, we're trying to keep those shoulders in line with the heels, and you'll get to a point where that's it. That's as low as you want to go versus that expectation of moving up and down. I first want you mastering good technique, good positioning. Once we start moving and the plate's moving, the technique tends to go out the window. So good positioning, and you'll also learn by doing static exercises, you're going to feel exactly where you're targeting it. So if this is a troublesome area and you're trying to do some toning there, you can really feel by the depth or the height of your angles where you're physically targeting. So for those of you that are just starting squats, 15 to 20 seconds. If the squat is challenging for your body type, your range of motion, you shouldn't last between 15 to 30 seconds on any speed. And I'm challenging you to try at a mid to high speed. So additions, and I showed this one yesterday. This is the smallest size of the swirl yoga rings. You can also use, this is a playground ball that has been deflated. There is no perfect size. It depends on your height and the length of your legs. But either of these, place just above the knees to target these. So if you were the one that lasted for a minute or two, because you do squats all the time, to get you to that 30-second to a minute mark, I'm challenging you to make your squat more challenging. So I'm adding this just above the knees. Okay. My feet again are a little bit wider than hip width apart, maybe about an inch. Now I'm forced to engage the inner and outer thigh muscles. Same position. Come lower. Whatever your range of motion allows, and just hold still. This is also a great way not only to fatigue faster, but to further reduce and minimize any impact on the joints by not moving. And 30 seconds to a minute. If you're not caved, then, all right, well, what do we got to do next? Do we need to add some weight? Just progress and find the squat and the variation that gets you to fatigue within that 30-second mark. Whew. And I would say probably 2 to 3 reps, depending on you. I would love to see if you're adding a little bit of a warm-up with the pelvic tilt and you're going to be working on some squats. Again, 2 to 3 minutes max on that last one. But any of these will also serve, because they're short in purpose. If it's hard for you maybe you're dealing with a respiratory issue and it's hard for you to exercise for long durations, there may be other reasons. So perhaps doing a couple of sets of these throughout the course of the day, not only is it going to help with the weight loss and the toning, but any of these standing exercises that I'm showing you are the best way to help boost bone density. Bone density is about bearing your weight, standing on your bones. For those of you looking at strength, those squats are going to not only exponentially boost your strength, they're going to make your range of motion and your mobility, getting up out of that chair, those everyday tasks, a lot easier as well, along with the weight loss. So I hope those have given you ideas. Like I say, it's never a one size fits all. And I will recap the exercise. I've left the machine going. One moment. It's still, my disco lights are still going in the background. Again, I can't stress enough the understanding and the relationship of, it's not a setting, it's not a speed. I want you to experiment with all of the speeds, but I always suggest a mid to higher speed with a closer foot placement and condition to a wider one over time. The machine's not going to do all the work for you. And because it's the new year and everybody's kind of in that, getting back into the routine time, I'm getting exponentially more questions than I would on a normal day. And a lot of them are people that, oh, Deb, my knees were bugging me, or oh, my hip was bugging me, or what did I do wrong? And stop beating yourself up. There is no right or wrong. There's only learning to do it better next time. If we don't make mistakes and trip on ourselves sometimes, there's no room for improvement. So I didn't know how to do any of these things perfectly as far as I'm not saying I'm doing them perfectly, but my positioning and my form improved tremendously when I had to do these positions on the machine, and it challenged my body and my center of gravity and my stability. So a vibration machine is very good at improving your form. And, any of the exercises that you may want to perform on a vibration machine, there's a million YouTube help things out there as far as what's the best way to do a squat or what's the best way to do a push-up. Again, the machine is just the environment that makes them more effective in less time. So I hope that helps some of you. Again, you are only limited by your range of motion and your imagination. So, don't do anything you're not ready for. If you are struggling with getting down on the ground, it's always the getting back up that presents more challenge. So the squats, getting up out of that chair and sitting back down in it, there's lots of ways to improve that range of motion. I would love to see if any of you at this point have questions. I think I tried to pick 2 or 3 of these things because I've got so many ideas in my head. It would be a 6-year video if I ever sat down, I'll fall asleep. But there was a little something for everybody today. And again, there's a lot, everybody's dealing with their own individual needs, but I want you to be realistic. Stop beating yourself up if you're not able to do the workout because there's things that you're dealing with. Know that your plates are also such a huge self-care tool, not only to help manage symptoms as they present, but for those chronic issues. There's no reason that you can't benefit from exercising on your plate, but sometimes you need to do some spot treatments or some, specific type things for those deficiencies to make the rest of it more fluid and more functional. So there's always a workaround, and sometimes I just need a little bit more insight. So please, if you do have questions, you've tried your machine, you had a poor experience, you just got one this week, and you couldn't get out of bed for a week, or you were having issues. It's very common to overdo it. In the form of time, these machines, what's 10, 15 minutes? That doesn't seem like much, but there is a little bit more going on than you may realize. You feel good, you get exhilarated, you get energy. So sometimes less is more. And today's examples were really, like I say, a total of 2 minutes per set. And I'll outline those sets in a comment again, once we get the recording up here. But just to improve your day-to-day. Today was about paying more attention to your own self-care. And sometimes we think of that self-care as just a big workout or going to the gym or going to the Pilates class. And if you've got these amazing Life Pro tools in your home, sometimes we dismiss the amount of benefit, just giving our mind and our body 2 to 3 minutes away from whatever is adding to that oxidative stress or that mental fuzz. Your plate is a fantastic tool. Invest 2 to 3 minutes in yourself, even if it's just once a day to start. Everybody says, oh, I don't have 10 minutes. Do you have 2? That's all I'm asking for. So I challenge you guys, if you're not using your plates and you're using I don't have time for a workout or I can't do a workout as the excuse, I challenge you to, care for yourself. Use it as a self-care tool. Invest 2 to 3 minutes in your self-care and try some of these variations. So who's here with me today? Threw out my back yesterday. Can I sit and use my waiver? I suggest you watch, if you're just joining me, Facebook user, I started with a seated option. You absolutely can use your plate. It's understanding how to modify it for what you might be experiencing. So if this is something you've done in the past and there's things that you shouldn't be doing as far as exercises, make sure you adhere to those same laws of Toyland. I did a toe touch. I wouldn't do that today with your back being out. But yeah, I would start seated and see how you feel. The big thing when you're dealing with a back issue or something where you've hurt yourself is reducing the foot placement, reducing the amount of intensity to just see where you're at and use it as a therapeutic tool versus the workout. So the second set was specific to low back. So there's a couple of variations there I suggest you try, but start with closed feet at a mid to high speed on that one. Hello, Facebook user, and hi there, Facebook user. I hope you guys are having a good start to 2024. I feel all weirded out because there's been so many Mondays that have been holidays here the last couple of weeks. It's going to feel like a long week next week by the time we get to the 5 days. But yes, make yourself a priority this year. Start with 2 minutes and hopefully build from there. But 2 to 3 minutes on your plate, even in some of these spot treatments, is by far going to benefit you by not doing it at all, and progress from there. And my own little side psychology as a coach on these devices is, if I can get you there for 2 to 3 minutes, you start moving, you start feeling better, and then next thing you know, oh, the timer goes off. You've been there 10, 15 minutes already. So again, for those of you that are returning to the sport, don't forget, start conservatively in your time, and don't overdo it getting started out for those of you, like I say, that got new plates and so forth over the holidays. Have a great rest of your week. Don't work too hard. And I look forward to seeing you next Monday, same place, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another session. And coffee saves lives. It's my shirt today. You guys have a great rest of the week. Thank you so much for joining me.